order. Jason, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Council President Perez. Okay. Councilmember Van.
Here.
Councilmember Benedetti.
Here.
Councilmember O'Halloran.
Here.
Council President Perez.
Here.
Councilmember McIrvin.
Here.
Councilmember Prince.
Here.
Councilmember Corman.
Here.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All present.
Kimberly. Okay, thank you. First up, we have a proclamation.
Okay, proclamation. Women's Right to Vote Centennial Anniversary.
I hit the microphone so I could hear more.
Whereas August 26, 2020 marks the centennial anniversary of the 19th, the 19th Amendment becoming a part of the Constitution of the United States, providing for women's suffrage, and whereas Congress passed the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, guided by the shared ideals of freedom, where are we at? Freedom, sovereignty, democracy, civil liberties, and individual rights. And whereas the city of Renton has long appreciated and celebrated the contributions of women to the quality of life in this community, and whereas women are vital to the social, economic, political, intellectual, and spiritual well-being of our community, and whereas women and activists fought for and won the right to vote in Washington State on November 8, 1910, making it the fifth state in the Union to enact women's suffrage nearly 10 years before the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. And whereas the ratification of the 19th Amendment ensured women could more fully participate in our democracy and fundamentally change the role of women in the civic life of our nation. And whereas the introduction, passage, and ratification of the 19th Amendment were the culmination of decades of work and struggle by advocates for the rights of women across the United States. Now, therefore, I, Armando Pavoni, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim August 26, 2020 to be Women's Right to Vote Centennial Anniversary in the City of Renton, and I encourage all members of the community to commemorate the achievements of the women who fought for the right to vote 100 years ago, and to celebrate the many contributions women have made during the last century. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this 3rd day of August, 2020, signed Armando Pavoni, Mayor of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Council President Perez.
I move to adopt the proclamation as read. Second.
It's been moved by Council President Perez, seconded by Councilmember O'Halloran, that the proclamation be adopted as read. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries. And tonight we're excited. We have 3 elected officials joining us tonight that have served the city over the years. We have former Mayor Kathy Kolker joining us, former long-term council member Tony Nelson, and more recently, Marcy Palmer. I want to thank you all 3 for being here. It's fun to see you in this Zoom setting that you didn't have to participate in. So, Kathy, would you like to say a few words for us?
Sure. I'm not in Zoom, I'm on the phone, so you'll have to just look at that little phone thing on your screen. A couple things I'd like to say. You currently have a female majority council, and I was on one of those female majority councils myself. It was kind of exciting when that happened. And I'd like to kind of talk for a second about the fact that you've got so many amazing women there on your council now. It's under circumstances that I think are more horrible than anything I could ever imagine, under the pandemic conditions and all that's going on in the world today. 3 of you are brand new with bringing all the enthusiasm of wanting to serve the city. And I remember when I was a young council member, I just had all kinds of energy and I wanted to do all kinds of things for the city, and I was raring to go. And I cannot even imagine how you deal with that when you can't talk to one another, can't be in the same room with one another, you can't meet with your constituents, you can't even have normal day-to-day interactions with each other. To learn this wonderful new job that you have, it must be tremendously frustrating for you. But you're very fortunate to have a strong woman leader in Ruth Perez as your council president. And I think Ruth is very well respected, and she knows how things work. And even though I haven't had the pleasure of working directly with her, I'm betting that she's willing to share her experience with you to help you become a very effective council member. So I hope that you use her and that you lean on her and you ask her lots of questions and that you learn from her experience, because I think it will make you a better public servant. And the way things are in the world right now, all of you, both women and men on the council, you need each other. You've got to work together because the problems we're facing right now are unprecedented. We citizens of Renton, we need your best efforts all the time. We've got real problems that need real solutions. And the people here need thoughtful consideration and respectful dialogue. And I, for one, as a Renton citizen, I don't want to be like Seattle. Renton is better than that. Renton deserves to have thoughtful representation and a council that works together for the betterment of all of us. And I'd like to thank those women whose shoulders I stood on as a young woman coming up in this community. You will remember some of them, and Tony will remember all of them because she's been around as long as I have. None of us came up without standing on the shoulders of the women who came before us. Women like June Leonard, who was the director of Rays and became a state representative. I was an intern for June Leonard when I was 19 years old. And women like Martha Weiberg and Tilly Cole and Ethel Telbin, those women lived on Renton Hill, and they supported me early on when I was doing Renton Hill things. And women like Barbara Shinpo, who was the first woman mayor of the city of Renton. Barbara was my mentor for many, many, many years, and she taught me all kinds of things about how to serve as a public servant in the city of Renton and how to do good things in the community. So I'd just like to say thank you to those women who are all gone now, but their legacy lives on. And I would encourage all of you on the council now to look for other women, young women coming up behind you, and try to help them and guide them in becoming good public servants who can follow in your footsteps. And finally, I'd like to say that the right to vote has been talked about a lot in the last couple of weeks because of the passing of Congressman John Lewis, as it was his life's work. And in our state, fortunately, we don't suffer from the kind of voter suppression that is going on in other places in the country. And I would like to encourage everyone to vote, and I would like to ask all of you council members and mayor to do the same. You still have time to vote in the primary tomorrow, all of you who are listening. You can drop your ballot in the box at King County Elections, which is right here in Renton on Grady Way, or you can get it postmarked by tomorrow, dropping it in the mailbox. No postage is required. It's already stamped and ready to go. And please vote in November. If you haven't registered, you can still register online or by mail. I know this sounds like a commercial, but voting is a really important thing. And if you'll be 18 by November 3rd, you can actually pre-register as a 17-year-old. All you have to do is Google King County Elections, and you can find all the information that you need. It couldn't be any easier. Please encourage people to vote. We make it easy here in Washington State and in King County for people to be able to vote. We make it super, super easy. It's not like a lot of other states in this country. And all those women who fought for the right to vote 100 years ago would be proud of you if you just use that right. It is so, so precious. So thank you for the invitation tonight. It really means a lot to me to be invited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that you've been gone away from City Hall for a while, but it really sounds like you haven't missed a step. So thank you. Thank you for joining us.
I may be old, Mayor, but I'm not dead yet.
Tony, would you like to say a few words?
Tony?
Tony, yes.
Oh, I'll say a few words. I just want to say that being on the council was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. And due to my age, I've had a lot of experiences. And that was wonderful. We did so many good things for Renton at that time. We had new parks, we had new buildings, and we, as a council, just worked wonderful together. And that's what I'm hoping that you all do, is learn to forget about your differences and think about the citizens, because that's who you're there for, not for yourself. You're there for the citizens. And being that I was in a retail business, I had them coming in all the time. So I had a lot of chatting with the people that lived in Renton, and I loved it, and I was really happy that I was able to be there for them. And I was just there during such a wonderful time, and I enjoyed, and all of the people that I worked with, and all of the people that were the employees of the city. I just talked to every one of them in the elevator. They probably thought, well, she's kind of a goofball, but that's okay. That's me. I like to talk, and I love people. So thank you for inviting me to be here this evening. This is a lot of fun. I enjoy it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Marcy, would you like to say a few words before we? Oh, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
I clicked twice. I want to echo what both Kathy and Tony have said, and I'm so proud to see so many women getting active. It's easier not to. It's hard to put yourself out there and be open to criticism. But I totally agree with what Tony said, in that just keep remembering that you're there for the citizens, not your own agenda. Keep listening. It's hard for you folks right now to not be able to have the one-on-ones or the interactions, which is what I valued the most. Every neighborhood picnic for 12 years, but that was the best, to get out with the people and listen. Don't talk, listen, ask them. So what's on your mind? What are your priorities? And I want to thank my mentors, Kathy and Terry Breyer, who's no longer here with us, recruited me. As Kathy mentioned, keep your eyes out. They saw me speak for the first time ever at a council member and recruited me after that. And I want to thank them and thank Tony, Kathy, and Terry for being my mentors and helping me navigate, because it wasn't a female majority at that time. But I'm proud of Renton, and I'm watching all of you. I read every committee agenda and backup, and I'm watching you on Monday nights. So thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you very much. I think Linton was well served as your leadership shows throughout the years, and we have had some amazing leaders. I remember I was actually a young kid when my father was a police officer here in Renton, and he came home very excited about the fact that Barbara Shimpo was running for mayor, and it was quite a thing in our household, and he was very supportive of her. So anyway, thanks once again for your leadership, and thank you for joining us tonight. This was really fun. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I neglected to say one thing that I wanted to, about Tony and Marcy, if I might. I want to point out to those of you who may not know that the reason we have a Renton Farmers Market is because of Tony Nelson. It was Tony Nelson's idea. It was Tony Nelson who pushed the idea, and the only reason that we have a Renton Farmers Market today is because of Tony Nelson, her leadership, her vision, and her persistence in making that farmers market happen. And I don't ever want to lose sight of that. Sometimes we kind of forget who was the fireball that made things happen. And Tony Nelson was the reason we have the market. And I also want to point out that Marcy Palmer is the reason that we still have the Renton Library over the river, because there was a move to take that library and put it in the place where the current farmers market is being held, the old Big Lot site. And if it hadn't been for Marcy Palmer and her stubbornness and her vision and her passion, we would not have the library over the river. So those two women were a force to be reckoned with on those two particular things. So I want to make sure that people know that.
Yes, well, thank you. That was very good to point that out. And I always felt for years that that the downtown business court was being looked after while Tony was on council. So appreciate all of your support, and thank you very much for being here tonight. Okay, we are going to move on to more exciting stuff. Up next, we have a public hearing. And who is here? Emergency waive fee ordinance. Who will be giving the report? Is that Hannah?
That is me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hannah.
Okay.
Thank you, Council. For the record, my name is Hannah Von Miller. I'm the Housing Programs Manager with the city. The public hearing today is concerning the moratorium on the application for waived fees of Emergency Ordinance 5973. Emergency Ordinance 5967 was a previous ordinance which was adopted on April 6, 2020, which established a moratorium on the acceptance of fee waivers for large residential projects in the CB zone, among some other items. A public hearing was opened by Planning Commission on June 3rd, and comment on the waived fee item closed on July 9th or July 8th, 2020. Planning Commission deliberated and made recommendations on this item on July 15th, 2020. Ordinance 5967 did not address waived fee applications for projects other than large residential projects in the CB zone, which allowed all other projects to apply for waived fees, notwithstanding the moratorium. The subject of tonight, Emergency Ordinance 5973, was adopted on June 22nd, 2020, and established a moratorium on the acceptance of waived fees for all projects. Ordinance 5967 cited the need to assess the impact of waived fees for large residential projects in the CB zone, as RCW 82.02.060 allows the city to waive up to 80% of transportation, parks, and fire mitigation fees for eligible projects. Current provisions of the RMC 4-1-210 allow for 100% of all eligible fees to be waived, meaning that the city pays the 20% difference above the statutory limit for transportation, parks, and fire impact mitigation fees. The subsequent ordinance, Ordinance 5973, cited that Ordinance 5967 did not address waived fee applications for any projects other than large residential projects in the CB zone. That staff have undertaken a work program to propose amendments to the fee waiver provisions, including measures to cap fee waivers for impact mitigation fees at the statutory limit. That staff have briefed the Planning Commission regarding proposed amendments to the fee waivers, and that revenue losses are projected this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that staff needs the opportunity to evaluate and amend the fee waiver provisions before new applications are received to avoid further revenue impacts. Since the ordinance has been adopted, Planning Commission did concur with staff recommendations for Council's consideration. And that concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay, this is a public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up for comment?
Mr. Mayor, my name is Julia Mitzigian. For the record, I am the City Council liaison and have no one that signed up in advance to speak. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on Zoom, if you could please raise your hand, and this would be for the public hearing. Seeing none, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Jason, do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, what is the wish of the council?
I move to, Mr. Mayor,
Council President Perez.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Council President Perez, seconded by Councilmember Corman, that the public hearing be closed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. All right, next up is administrative report.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I have two items. The City of Renton's 2020 census return rate is, there we go, is 70.2%, which is first in South King County and fourth in the state for cities with 100,000 residents or more. Earlier this month, census takers started going door to door to those renting households who have not yet responded. If one comes to your dwelling, please give them your cooperation. These census takers are Renton residents, trained in all COVID-19 guidelines and authorized by the federal government to conduct these interviews. If you have any questions about census takers, please contact the Regional Census Center at 213-314-6500 and speak with the Census Bureau representative. The other item is just traffic impacts, which residents can view all of them at rentonwa.gov/traffic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Okay, next up, we have audience comments. We will open up audience comment period. It remains the strong intent of the city to have public comment regularly included on our agendas. However, the city reserves the right to eliminate or end these public comment periods and/or remove anyone from the meeting at any point if we deem the system is being abused or is no longer suitable to allowing the city to conduct its necessary business. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to speak. You'll be called upon by Julie Metzigian, Council Liaison. Ms. Metzigian will call the speaker's name and unmute the appropriate microphone, which will send an automatic prompt to the speaker of you have been unmuted. This is the speaker's cue that is their turn to speak. Please begin your comments by stating your name, city of residence, and the topic you are addressing. The speaker should be able to see a timer on the screen. When your time is almost up, please wrap up your comments. Ms. Metzigian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, again, my name is Julia Metzigian. I'm the City Council Liaison. I will begin by calling the names of those who have pre-registered to speak. After I call your name, you can unmute, and then you will have 5 minutes to address the council. Please begin by stating your name and city of residence. First, I have David Klein.
Yes, hello, council. My name is David Klein. I live in the city of Renton up in the Highlands. And my subject today is hoping to address the council and get your possible input on the topic of, through the Renton Police Department, obtaining a concealed pistol license and having that access basically denied until phase 3 of the COVID-19 state status gets put into play. In my email to be able to address this council today, and thank you very much for having me, I did get a email back from Deputy Chief Schultz, who came up with the solution of possibly going to an outside vendor. Through those emails, I realized that it wasn't just the fingerprinting aspect of potential COVID-19 transmission. It was the fact that City Hall is actually closed. So I was hoping to get the council's take on possible solutions or workarounds, and I'm just curious if this was a staffing issue at the police department for taking fingerprinting, that sort of thing. I know that it's you can only obtain your concealed pistol license in the county in which you live. I've tried to obtain this or looked into obtaining this in a different county. I realized that was not something that was available. And first of all, I want to say thank you for your service. I, as well as am a public servant. I work for the Washington State Department of Ecology as a school responder and serve pretty much South King County, especially now during COVID. So, yeah, that's all I have at this time. I'm happy to hear your insights or comments. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Corman.
I want to just say I appreciate Mr. Klein being here tonight, and I saw his email exchange with the council liaison. I'll probably do exactly what she said would happen, but I'd like to refer this topic to the administration to see if there's a solution we can come up with.
I have a motion Do I have a second? Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Corman, seconded by Councilmember Prince, that the issue of concealed weapon permits and the ability to obtain them during the COVID crisis be referred to the administration. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, thank you very much. We'll take it up in the administration. Ms. Mazigian.
Okay, I also have Linda Smith signed up to speak, but I don't see Linda signed on. Linda, if you're in the audience, could you please raise your hand? Okay. Next I have Mike Batten with his hand raised. Go ahead, Mr. Batten.
Good evening, Council. It's Mike Batten, resident of Lower Kittydale for a number of years. And I wanted to publicly express my support for the Council, the Mayor, City Administration, and leadership, and the various public service departments for their excellent attitude, responsiveness, and the ability to serve in a time of difficulty for all of us. We all realize that it's not the same world it was 6 months ago. A lot of folks have a tendency to look and point fingers and blame, but I think that the City of Renton has provided an exemplary example of what to do versus some of our other colleagues in other parts of the state and country. So again, very simply, thank you for providing a safe and enjoyable area to live. My family and I appreciate it, and we look forward to the years to come. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Batten. That is very appreciated. So these are certainly unique times, and we're learning as we go. So thank you for your kind comments.
Okay, I don't have anyone else with their hands raised. If there's somebody in the audience that would like to speak, please use your computer to raise your hand. Mitch Shepard. Go ahead.
Hello to City Council members. Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
We can.
Excellent. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My subject is the proposed Black Lives Matter mural that has been raised as a art project for the city to undertake. First, I just want to say I've had the pleasure to get to know and work with many of you as a former member and at one point leader of the Renton Municipal Arts Commission. I'm thrilled that tonight we were able to hear a celebration of female representation of leadership in this community. We often are able to hear about how much ethnic diversity there is in the city. It's clear that Renton has a history of using its population to forward movements that emphasize those who are underserved, underrepresented. I just have to say that you should be aware or are likely aware at this point that there is an effort underway to create a Black Lives Matter based mural in the city. It has taken a number of forms at one point to put the words of Black Lives Matter on the street, as we've seen from other cities. There's been a proposal to put art on a wall. There's just there's an idea out there. There's a number of ideas out there. From my point of view, what I'm seeing is a need to help have the city be more transparent in what efforts it's making to help this art, the advocates of this art, undertake and make this project come to life. I know there are numerous hurdles with regards to components of the city, components of the artists, the selection of artists. I'm not expecting this to go up overnight, but I as a citizen of the city and this world, I believe that this is an important act that Renton can undertake to put eyes in front of this by putting something up that's significant, that makes a statement about how important the in particular Black population in this city is and meaningful it is. It's something that I know will have a number of proponents, a number of people, and a number of voices, and those voices are critical, but I feel that the city could do more to help from its side, be transparent, be more outward, be more vocal about how it wishes to support this or not wish to support this, if in fact that's how the city feels. I just want to say that I know that these times are tremendously difficult. The work that you've had to do with distancing, this is not the most pressing issue, but in our world, this is a problem that the world is talking about, and I think it would be wonderful to have Renton to make its voice heard, to speak out, to tell its population that it believes in them, that it wants to see them be fruitful, that it wants to see them be everything that they can be. So with that, I'll say thank you, and hope to hear from the representation and leadership of the city a bit more about their feelings and how they can help to make this come to light.
Ms. Mitzian, are you still there? Do we have any more?
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the council at this time? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have consent agenda. Is everybody muted?
Mr. Mayor,
And Council President Perez.
I move that the council concur with the consent agenda as published.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Council President Perez, seconded by Council Member Corman, that the council concur with the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have unfinished business. President Perez,
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Council Member Van,
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Council Member Benedetti,
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Council Member O'Halloran. You're muted.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Utilities Committee has a report.
Okay, Utilities Committee report, agreement with Jacobs Engineering Group Incorporated. The Utilities Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to execute the agreement with Jacobs Engineering Group Incorporated in the amount of $170,009 for the Washington State Department of Transportation Limited Access Right-of-Way Runoff Impacts Characterization Study.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember O'Halloran.
I move that council concur with the committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember O'Halloran, seconded by Councilmember Corman, that the council concur with the Utility Committee report.
Mr. Mayor, that was
Yes.
Mr. McIrvin.
Okay. Please note that it was Mr. McGurven Councilmember McGurven that seconded the motion.
Got it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, thank you. Councilmember McGurven.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Prince.
Finance Committee has two committee reports.
Finance Committee, the first is regarding approval of claims and payroll vouchers. The Finance Committee approves the following payments. Accounts payable, total payment of $5,263,310.54 for a number of vouchers and payroll benefit withholding vouchers. Payroll, total payment of $1,409,784.64 for payroll vouchers that include 586 direct deposits. This is the June 16th through June 30th, 2020 pay period. Kidder Matthews vouchers totaling $35,007.29, and municipal court vouchers totaling $6,059 even.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Prince.
I move that council concur with the Finance Committee report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Prince, seconded by Councilmember Van, that the council concur with the Finance Committee report. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries.
Okay, the final Finance Committee report is regarding a reorg for the Public Works Department. The Finance Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve, 1, the proposed reorganization of the Public Works Department to create the Airport Division. 2, the requested promotion of the existing airport manager position to an airport director. And 3, the Public Works Department to hire the preferred candidate at a salary grade of up to M38 Step E, depending on the qualifications of the applicant.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Prince.
I move that council concur with the Finance Committee report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Prince, seconded by Councilmember Van, that the council concur with the Finance Committee report. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Councilmember Corman.
And no unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Up next, we have legislation. We have 2 resolutions and 2 ordinances.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, the first resolution is regarding adopting the 2021-26 business plan to strengthen its stand against racism in support of racial equity. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, adopting the 2021-26 business plan to strengthen its stand against racism in support of racial equity.
Mr. Mayor,
Council President Perez.
I move the resolution to be adopted as published.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved
Mr.
by
Mayor?
President. Yes, Councilmember Van.
If I may ask to move to amend.
Mr. Mayor, we already have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, I think we have to finish this motion. Yeah. Okay, so it's been moved by Councilmember Perez, seconded by Councilmember Corman, that the resolution be adopted as read. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, yes.
wouldn't we need to be able to consider an amendment before adopting, calling for a vote on it?
I believe that's right.
Yes, you can move to amend. You can't move to amend an amendment until the amendment is voted on, but you can move to amend.
So do we vote on it and then do the amendment, then we do the proposed amendment?
You hear the amendment, then you vote on the amendment, and then the vote on the motion, whether amended or not, is taken.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Van.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I wouldn't have to do a motion to amend if we had put it in the first time, but I do appreciate the opportunity. I move to amend 2 parts. The first is the resolution itself. I'm going for that document. I move to amend that it reads, plan to strengthen its stand against structural and institutionalized racism and achieve racial equity.
I'm sorry, is that the title, Ms. Van?
Yes.
Okay.
And should we vote on that, or should I go to the next in that document?
Mr. Mayor?
You should continue with your amendments.
Councilmember Corman.
I just wanted to get clarification. So that the proposal was to amend the title of the resolution. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And Ms. Van, I believe you continue with your motion to amend that second part.
Yeah, and the other part for this resolution, before I get to the business plan, is I move to amend or add in a whereas right after the fourth whereas. So I move to amend the resolution by adding in a whereas after the fourth whereas, that whereas the City of Renton government recognizes that, like most, if not all, communities in the United States, the community and the government are allowed to perpetuate racial disparities through the use of many regulatory and policy-oriented tools. These ordinances and other citywide practices have contributed to the decimation of the historically Black neighborhoods, a lack of trust with government by some Black residents, and the collapse of once economic thriving Black community in the Hilltop in Renton. And that the city acknowledges that the trauma inflicted on the people of color due to our laws and policies in psychological harm and affecting educational, economic, and social outcomes. And that the memories of the city's past, not only for those who lived through them, but also for generations to follow. So that is the amendment that I have, the two amendments for the resolution. For the business plan, should I wait on the vote or should I go on to the business plan?
Can I just, point of clarification, is the intent to vote on all of the amendments at once, or are you wanting the amendments, take one at a time?
One at a time, it's fine.
Then we should stop after each one and.
Okay, so let's vote on the change of the title of the resolution. We don't have a second, so. Okay, and then on the extending the whereas, the additional whereas, do we have a second? We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second for that?
Mr. Mayor, I was hoping Mayor perhaps from the maker of the motion could offer a little bit more rationale. I got the gist of the reason for both of those, but to understand perhaps why these changes would be necessary to the document we're trying to adopt today.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Orvin. And the reason is that we started out with the resolution to ending commitment to end structural racism and to achieve racial equity. And then it became a part of the business plan and a proposal, the business proposed plan, which is great, the budget proposal. So the intention of the original was to basically talk about why we needed to end structural racism. And so for us not listing the Black experience, of course there are many Black experiences, but at least the Black pioneers in Renton and the community in the Hilltop, I think that would not speak truth to the piece of why we're being intentional of listing the community impact. And as part of one of the Renton Historical Society and Museum quarterly newspaper, March 2007, as I did more research, that was highlighted in there, that in particularly in some areas, it was written here that the first pioneers known to be around the 1930s, Mother Grayson, as we all come to know. Certainly, there's some areas in Renton, especially in that area, where white residents would petition to stop a Black family from buying a home, or homeowners would raise prices to discourage potential Black owners. And there's a lot of past discrimination, so we're being intentional. And I know that our colleagues have mentioned that many times in regarding to drafting this. And I appreciate Councilmember Corman for delaying the vote last time and hearing community. And that's what I heard of community last time, and that I wanted to bring it up. I don't know of staff reaching out to community and had community forums, but I do notice that in the resolution, we did add it to commitment to ongoing community forums and the like.
And I can add to that, yes, staff did reach out to the community and actually convened the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force. And they were the ones that went over and approved it. So, okay, so with the explanation, we still have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Council Member.
Yeah. I've really appreciated the administration's indulgence as we've taking the extra time to work through all the suggestions on this. And I'm a little bit tempted to ask maybe if the administration might look at it one more time. And as much as I respect Councilmember Vaughn's basically waiting until the document was completed by staff and then presented to the council, and I'm hearing her come forward with a proposal that could maybe get a staff review prior to the council voting on it. And I know we're always trying to be efficient in what we're doing, but this is also really important. So I guess I don't want to lose a council member's support of this document. So for that, I guess I would maybe move that we table this for a week to give the administration a chance to review.
So if I may interrupt, Councilmember Corman, we're dealing with extraordinary times here at the city, and we are heading into a budget season that is taking a lot of bandwidth on the staff's time. And so I mean, if it's the wish of the council, we will certainly do it, but I don't know how fast we'll be able to get this turned around at this point. I do also want to point out that this is something that the council will be once again examining in 6 months. I mean, you'll be going back out to another council retreat, and so it's not the final say. So it's certainly something that can be looked at again down the road. But I'm either way, whatever the council wishes, we will certainly do our best to try and fulfill that. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Prince.
We are making this way too hard. It's the dang business plan. And if we weren't in an official meeting, I'd probably say something other than dang. Come on, you guys. It's the business plan. It is the document. At some point, we have to actually do something and stop putting stuff on hold. Let's get this done. Seriously. We've got budget, and we've got 3 brand new council members who haven't done budget yet. Let's get this done.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
I fully support Councilmember Prince. I think it's time to vote. Sometimes we have to take votes that we don't want to take, and sometimes we have to take hard votes. I have reviewed this document. I have read it, and I didn't hear a second for discussion. But now we're discussing the amendments. But I'm fully supportive of moving forward to vote on this item.
Mr. Mayor, one last point, and then I'll be quiet.
Okay.
As a legislative body, none of us get 100% of what we want when we're working on something. We get what we can get, and then we work to try to make it better in the future. We have worked exhaustively on this document. I think it's time to pass this, get the business plan out there so that we can start working on what our priorities are for this, the rest of this year and the next, and then we can come back and visit it at the retreat and have an even more thorough process of what we want this to look like. But at some point, we've got to, or get off the pot.
Thank you, Councilmember Prince.
Mr. Mayor?
I don't know who's talked.
That was Angie.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Benedetti.
Yes, Councilmember Benedetti.
I also want to take just a moment to thank the administration for the amount of work that has been put in onto this so far. I understand that there was a convening of the Inclusion Task Force, and that there was a lot of discussion there about some language and reaching out to the folks on that task force. And it seemed, that was something that we have talked about from the beginning in the council retreat around this. And I just appreciate that the time that has and the careful consideration that this has taken so far by the administration. So thank you.
So one of the processes that staff took, they basically went back and asked Jason to give a complete word by word description of all the comments from the public over the last 3 or 4 weeks regarding this topic. And then Bonita and Preeti sat down and tried to basically digest it and find the things that were not in our business plan that needed to be in there. And so that was once they got it to a point where they felt like they could bring it to the task force, they brought not only the document, but all of the supporting information that the input that was put in to develop their docket. And the task force, they did have some changes and some wordsmithing they wanted done there. So there, I mean, it has been exhaustive. This is a very important document to the city. I mean, it's something that administrators run the city and look to as a constant reminder to what the priorities and kind of the leading goals we have. So it's not something that we should take lightly, and I don't think staff has here. So with that, I'm going to have to try and rewind and find out where we're at right now. So
we had a motion on the floor to add a whereas, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have my hand up before two council members.
Yeah, Councilmember Van.
Yes, and I understand that staff have worked hard on it. I've been in conversation with staff. I think that it's important that we don't rush it, and I'm not trying to delay, as this was a motion that brought about a month ago, and I appreciate council members for their thoughtful input. And certainly I think that the communities that I represent do have these concerns, and that's why I'm bringing it back up, because I brought it up to staff and it wasn't put in. And from the last meeting that we heard on council, community, that's different than the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force. We should not kid ourselves that things get all, wordsmith and all that. I think there's a different struggle, different experiences. Even myself, I can't feel what the community is feeling. But certainly I acknowledge there is a different experience in the Mayor's Inclusion Task Force, because I've been a part of it. And from what the community members who've had spoken up at the last council meeting 2 weeks ago. So that's why I'm bringing it back up. If it is something that council don't want to address, that's up to council. But I have to bring it up, not because I'm delaying it, but I'm being thoughtful of what our community concerns are. And then I do have, to Council Member Prince's point, yes, it is the rent and business plan, which I do have an amendment to, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, so I don't hear a second on the whereas. Did you want to talk about the business plan at this point? Did you have something you wanted to change there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. For the business plan, I've spoken to city attorney, and that, thank you to Councilmember Corman at one of the whole meeting mentioned that we should perhaps as a council or as individual, as staff, review some of the archaic ordinance and policy. And I got a lot of information from the city attorney, so very much appreciate that conversation. But what came to light is that there is, some of our laws we haven't looked at it through the equity lens. So I would like to add, to amend the rent and business plan, to add in at the first bullet, and reviewing and updating ordinances through the rent and equity lens.
Under which part, Ms. Van?
Under the first bullet of the build an inclusive, informed city with equitable outcomes for all in support of social, economic, and racial justice. So the first bullet, just to add in, I moved to amend by adding in reviewing and updating ordinances through ordinances and laws through the rent and equity lens.
Mr. Mayor, I second, for the purpose, I want to discuss this just in a little bit of detail, if I may.
Okay, second on the floor for a conversation.
So I second it because, as Councilmember Vaughn said, it is important to me that we look at our ordinances as part of our work on structural racism. I don't know exactly what that looks like to go through them. I know it's a lot of work. I know the administration took my comment seriously, and that you, Mr. Mayor, and Benita and others working on this have thought about it. So I don't want to, and yeah, Ms. Perez. So I don't want to sound like I'm not supportive of Councilmember Vaughn's comment, but I also don't want to sound like I don't trust that the administration's already worked this in. So I guess for me, it's really a question of, does the business plan, the way it's written now, give us the room to make our review of these ordinances? And I can definitely see my colleague, Ms. Perez, has something to add to that.
Council President Perez.
Thank you. Sorry, Councilmember Corman. I didn't know how to raise my hand on the computer. I didn't mean to cut you short.
Oh,
I did talk to our staff about that specifically that you are adding. And in the first bullet, and I don't want to read it again, but say achieve equity of funds by eliminating racial, economic, and social barriers in internal practices, city programs, services, and policies. If you see, the business plan is from these height, right? I mean, it's not in detail. That's the reason why when we say policies, it didn't add ordinances, resolutions, and proclamations. At the end of the day, that was the intent of adding that in that bullet to address specifically what you brought to the table. But if you don't think that is clear enough, I'm sure that the staff will be willing to listen to your concern.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Prince.
And I guess my question is, since we've had our equity lens, what have we been doing as far as our policies? I mean, because our policies come from staff. And so are we already, is it going through a process for the equity lens?
No.
And we just haven't called out? I'm just trying to get more, because ideally, if we aren't doing that, we should. And if we are doing it, then, you know, maybe we need to have it written down just because. But I'm just curious what we're doing.
Okay. And basically, any policy that is used on a regular basis has gone through that. The issue is there's policies that that are very infrequently used, and so they haven't been pulled up to go through that. But I believe, and I haven't been here long enough to know every process of everything, but I do believe anytime a policy is pulled up that hasn't gone through that, that it goes through the equity lens and go through that process. That is different than saying, okay, we're going to take staff time and dedicate to going through each and every policy.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
And when you say policy, does that include ordinances, or are ordinances separate from that?
I would believe they would all be included.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. Yeah, so the reason I made the original comment is that if you look back, let's see, our city's 115 years old. And so a lot of our ordinances were written during a time of segregation. And I just want to make sure that we're going through, when we reopen an ordinance, at least when we reopen an ordinance, that we look at it with an equity lens and look for language that's not appropriate anymore. And I don't know if we could, have a schedule that's faster than that. That, when the schedule that we're ordinarily, our city's very busy with staff, reviewing ordinances, finding things that are out of date, and so it would be hard to make it through all the ordinances in any given year. Obviously, it'd be impossible. But when they are being reviewed, and perhaps for anything that's flagged as more important, I would just like to make sure those ordinances get reviewed with an equity lens. But I actually feel like if you and Council President Perez are confident that that's what this business plan does, and given the amount we've talked about it, I'm comfortable with it as is as well. So, either way for me.
Yes, I believe that's what the business plan does. That's my view of it. Okay. Yeah. Let's see, Shane, did you have a comment? You lit up there, so.
sorry, I think that was just a notification on my computer.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer this question if you'd like about the policies and ordinances and equity lens.
Fantastic. I didn't know you were in the room. Thank you, Preeti.
Sure. Council President, council members, and Mayor, the way we have done this is we have the equity lens, and yes, the word policies, internal practices is the broad term, and it applies to everything, ordinances and practices. But no, we have not yet gone through each and every policy or each and every ordinance. What we've been doing as administrators is prioritizing the critical ones and then going through the equity lens and then updating them as we see important. So for example, we've done it with the hiring practice, we're doing it with contracting, consulting, and then we bring them to you to adopt them. And then as things are getting more and more critical and important and, directly affecting the community and the public, we prioritize and work on them. And we also seek from you direction on which are the ones we should be, putting top of the list. So it is something that together we work on, we prioritize and bring to the top and put our resources on. So absolutely, it is, looking at the most important first. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti.
And Mr. Mayor, I guess I will chime in a little bit because I did have a conversation with Councilmember Van on this, and I did state that we haven't done a comprehensive review, and Preeti's correct on that. I guess my perspective on it, every decision that the city makes at the administration level, we have Preeti in the room, but we all are in the room, and we try to spot equity issues with everything. There's not an equity issue with everything the city does, but whenever we do something, we spot it. What we haven't done is gone through a comprehensive review of the code with looking for equity issues that we haven't yet spotted, and that would be a major undertaking. And I think what I told Councilmember Van is, at least from my perspective, I need a little bit of direction exactly what we were looking for as we went through it. Not generic equity, but is there something that the council thinks that we're doing that's resulting in a discriminatory pattern or something like that? Because we try to find those things as they come up, but we haven't reviewed the entire code because it would be such a major undertaking.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor, and I'm not here.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I have my hand up several speakers ago. So I just wanted to then echo Councilmember Corman, because now that the definition of policies is clear, so that include ordinances and not just policy as far as like hiring practice policy, right? So then that's fine if we don't add the word ordinance. But certainly it's not that my intention is to have an overall, look at all the ordinances, and because it is quite an undertaking, but there is something that we need to think critically and thoughtful about if we're talking about ending structural racism, that if there are still laws, ordinances in the book, that we need to address those. And I think, that's something that.
Well, we don't know if there are. That's the issue. Any of them that we know are there, we address. So
yeah. So just to keep that in mind as we're doing the work.
Go through the whole thing and not find anything. So.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think I understand that as a withdrawal of the motion to amend, and I would withdraw my second as well for the same reason, the understanding that the policy includes the ordinances.
Okay.
And I appreciate the discussion for clarification.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more proposed amendments before we go on to an actual vote here? Okay, so we have a first by Council President Perez and a second by Councilmember Corman that the council adopt the resolution 4414. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right, fantastic, good work, guys.
Okay, next I have another resolution. This one's regarding an amendment to the fee schedule. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, amending the 2019-2020 City of Renton fee schedule.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Prince.
move the resolution be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Prince, seconded by Councilmember O'Halloran, that the resolution be adopted as read. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries.
Okay, we have two ordinances up next. They're both for second and final reading requiring a roll call. The first is an ordinance amending the budget. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending the City of Renton fiscal years 2019-2020 biennial budget as adopted by ordinance number 5898 in the amount of negative $11,881,437.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Prince.
move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Prince, seconded by Councilmember Corman, that the ordinance be adopted as read. Requires a roll call.
Council President Perez.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughn.
Aye.
Councilmember Benedetti.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Halloran.
Aye.
Councilmember McIrvin.
Aye.
Councilmember Prince.
Aye.
Councilmember Corman.
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
Okay, thank you.
And the final ordinance for second and final reading is regarding amendment to the City Shoreline Master Program regulations. So an ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending subsections 4-3, get through this, 4-3, 4-4, 4-9, 4-10, and the definition of buffer shorelines in section 41120, the definitions of developable or area and development in section 41140, the definition of floodway in section 41160, the definition of lot measurements in section 411120, and the definition for RMC 4390 Shoreline Master Program Regulations use only of setback in section 411-190 of the Renton Municipal Code, amending the city's Shoreline Master Program regulations, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of the ordinance as read.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Corman, seconded by Councilmember McGurven, that the ordinance be adopted as read. This requires a roll call.
Council President Perez.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughn.
Aye.
Councilmember Benedetti.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Halloran.
Aye.
Councilmember McIrvin.
Aye.
Councilmember Prince.
Aye.
And Councilmember Corman.
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
Okay, thank you. Next up is new business. Council President Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Monday, August 10, 2020, at 5 p.m., we will have the Committee of the Whole via video conference. There is one item on the agenda, which is a joint meeting with the Mayor Inclusion Task Force. And at 7 p.m. on Monday, August 10, 2020, we will have our regular City Council meeting via conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Van.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We currently don't have any meeting for this month for Community Services Committee, but I do want to ask the issue of the Black Lives Matter Mural project to refer to the administration to be looked at and to give us a projected timeline of when it would be completed.
Okay, well, I don't think we need to vote on that because we already did. I believe you're already I think this is your third time sending it to administration. And we what I can update you on is that the Arts Commission and CED are both taking a look at working with Public Works, looking at the possibility of roads. But there's also been another idea that they're concurrently looking at, which is the possibility of doing a mural. And so this is an idea that actually Councilmember Prince ran by us, and we thought it was actually a great idea. So we put that out there as a possibility. So the Arts Commission and CED are both working on this. So hopefully I'll be able to report something back next week, at least an update to let you know where it's at. So, and you know, to kind of answer the earlier comments from Mitch, you know, the administration is supportive of this effort. So there's nobody at City Hall that's trying to slow anything down or change the route. It's just like everything else. There's process. So,
Mr. Mayor? I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Councilmember Press.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did talk yesterday with Mina, which is the wife of Mitch. And I think the only thing that we are missing here is the communication side. She is waiting for someone to call her to let her know where things stand, and it's a little bit confusing about what kind of project they are going to be supporting.
Okay.
So I do understand, I do agree with you that the city is very active working on this and very supportive, as well as the Municipal Art Commission. The only part here is that Mina is confused because there has not been enough communication with her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, that's an easy fix. Councilmember Khan, did you have anything else?
No, I don't have anything else, but I don't think that to say Mina is confused is an appropriate thing to say, but I just wanted to follow up because there was a comment today as well. So I appreciate what your answer is, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
I want to clarify, Mayor, if I may. I didn't say that Mina was confused at intent to offend her. I say that because there has not been clear communication with Mina, that has been confusing for her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Benedetti.
I have no new business, Mr. Mayor.
Good to see you anyway. Councilmember O'Halloran.
I also have no new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember McGurven.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do have a meeting to announce. The Transportation Committee is scheduled to meet at 2:45 p.m. Via video conference on August 10th. That's a Monday. And there's one item on the agenda, and that is Renton Airport Advisory Committee appointments. And that is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Prince.
Mr. Mayor, you know the Finance Committee is always ready to work. So we have a meeting on Monday, August 10th, 3 p.m. via video conference. We have 5 items on the agenda: vouchers, FEMA grant acceptance, traffic maintenance worker reclassification, Sunset Neighborhood Center grant agreement, and King County Metro Capital Improvement Agreement. And that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Corman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And as you can see, the sunset's about to blind me in just a couple minutes here in my study. So glad to get this out. I would like to announce a Planning and Development Committee meeting for Monday, August 10th, 4:00 p.m. It's going to be a video conference. There's 3 items on the agenda: docket 15, 2020 comprehensive plan amendments, and emerging issues in CED. And that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Van, I apologize for messing up your name again. It is not intentional. I promise you that. So, okay, what's the wish of the council?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved that we adjourn by Councilmember Prince, seconded by Councilmember O'Halloran. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.